Former Cincinnati Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis is not a fan of the proposed Rooney Rule incentive proposals. Speaking to the Baltimore Sun this week about his interpretation of the part that uses draft picks as incentive to hire African-American coaches, saying, quote, "It was offensive, definitely offensive. It was like having Jim Crow laws. Draft picks are like gold. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me as a head coach. No one wants to be hired or put in that position." Stephen A., what do you think about Marvin Lewis's comments on this?
Believe it or not, I don't think that it was significantly off base. I understand contextually where he's coming from here, Max. Certainly, I don't think he meant it in a literal sense. For those who may have been living under a rock or may be too young to know, Jim Crow laws were basically laws that enforced racial segregation in the southern states of the United States of America, and that had been that way until 1965. We understand that. If you take the meaning of it into context in terms of what Marvin Lewis was alluding to, Max, what he's trying to say is that essentially by hiring a black coach under those conditions, you will literally, even though they won't do so publicly, privately, it will be some sense of racial segregation. It's us against them mentality, separate and apart, because you're going to have so many people within the NFL community that are incredibly offended by such a rule having been implemented that they will react in a very negative fashion, and that's not something that would work to the benefit of qualified African Americans who land those jobs, ultimately having to be subjected to that kind of nonsense. Now, Dominique Foxworth came on the show yesterday, and I thought that he was very salient in his points in terms of, listen, we've been dealing with this out of the womb. It's what comes with the territory. But you know what? That's what comes with it, and we have to learn to deal with it. But I do understand what Marvin Lewis is saying. I know where he's coming from with this.
Look, I'm not going to tell a black man and one that has worked at the highest levels in the NFL how he should feel about a racial policy, whatever the intention of the policy is, if he compares it to Jim Crow. That's for him to feel. If you ask me my analysis of it, I don't think it's apt. Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. The fact is, it was separate but unequal for so long. And when you add it all up, 400 years, as I keep saying, people's basically a reaction to affirmative action. And the demoralizing effects it may have, the unintentional consequences, the demoralizing consequences for African Americans, in this case, Stephen A. To that, I would say after 400 years of negative action, some years of affirmative action are in order. And the fact that it demoralizes points out the crime that was committed for so long and its ongoing effects. If you don't like it, come up with something better.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.